Good morning, and welcome to the seminar series here to the Land Grant Seminars 2024 spring semester. We have a good and busy day today. I think I just want to show you that the rest of the schedule is full. There was supposed to be, as you can see there, another presenter, but this last time we made some changes. So today we are very pleased to have two presenters today, one from Prairie View A&M University, the other one from Texas A&M University, two graduate students who are going to share with us some of their work that they have been doing. The first speaker, our guest, Ashley Voigt. She's currently a PhD student in the Biological and Agriculture Engineering Department, Texas A&M University. Ashley, she got her MS degree in Biological Agriculture Engineering, so she's continuing on the same program. In fact, she did her research with us here in the farm as a joint project with Dr. Motar. Prior to her MS degree, she got her BS and double major in ecological restoration at Texas A&M University. Her research during her master's is in soil pedostructure under a water energy food nexus. The next speaker that is from Prairie View A&M University, the master's degree program, this is his first semester, is Mohammed Saimoom Islam. He's currently a master's student in NRES, as I said. He had a master's in natural resources, environmental science, master's in geographic information system. He started that in Western Michigan, Western Illinois University, and then we convinced him to come here, and he took us and came, left that program. He had his MS degree program in irrigation water management from Bangladesh University of Agriculture, and then BS from agriculture engineering from the same University of Agriculture, Bangladesh Agriculture University. I think Saimoom has very work experience from working on drought coordinators, from manager agriculture value chain development. Also, he's a recipient of several awards. In fact, the research he's going to be presenting today is about the first award that's shown here, the Blue Marble Geographic Award, academic award that he received last semester at Western Illinois University. And his research here is on drought impact assessment underwater energy food nexus in Texas. With that, I would like to welcome Ashley. Welcome, Ashley. Good.
I haven't seen ignoring it, so.
No, I understand probably.
Okay. I've never used a clicker, so hopefully it all goes well. I'll stand over here though. Okay, so hi, my name is Ashley Voigt. As mentioned, I am from Texas A&M University, and I'm in the Water Energy Food Nexus Research Group. That's our little logo. And so water, energy, food, there's a lot of interactions, but specifically water and food, the main thing that we really see that links them is the soil. So I'm looking at soil. And my master's project was the impact of biochar on soil water holding properties and subsequently plant growth through a pedostructural approach. So as we know, the population just keeps going up worldwide, which means water, energy, and food needs are also going up. To grow our food, we need a ton of water, But a lot of the water that we're using is actually being lost to the environment through evaporation before plants get a chance to use it. And this is evaporating from things like the interpetal water space or the macropores. But the micropores, those take more energy to release the water. So if you're going to grow plants and you're going to put in all the effort of watering them, don't you want to actually use that water instead of just waste it? So if we can get it out of the macropores and the interpetal space and into the micropores, then the energy requirements of that space is going to hold the water tighter until plant roots pull it out. So then you know that what you're irrigating actually stays and the plants will actually use it. And we've seen this by if you add negative charges to the soil, it's going to hold onto the positive charge of the water molecule. And you can get negative charge with organic matter. So specifically, we're going to use a pedostructural approach for this because then we can look at the way that soil aggregates are arranging themselves. And that lets us identify and quantify the various pore spaces and the water within those pore spaces. So my hypothesis is that if we add biochar to the soil, this should improve the aggregate structure, and this will improve the water retention and give plants more available water. And that should then allow plant biomass to increase and along with it, the crop yield. So lots of things that all come from the biochar. And so to do this, we need to quantify the changes that happen in the soil water retention and the plant's available water from applying biochar, and then determine the relationship between the plant we're growing, which is sorghum bicolor, the plant growth, biomass, and crop yield with the hydrostructural changes in the soil. And we're specifically using 3.36 kilograms of biochar per hectare for this particular study because that is twice the recommended application rate of nitrogen that the plants will need. There's a whole bunch of more treatments that we did, but because I was on a time crunch to get this project done, we decided to do that one because it was double the recommended. So we thought, give it its best shot of having good results. So in theory, with hydrostructural pedology or pedostructure, we get to consider the internal organization of the primary aggregates. And we do this by using thermodynamic equations. There's a whole bunch of them, but these consider the interactions between water, particle, surface charge, organic material, and minerals. And we can only do this if we use the structural mass as our reference because it's a constant. No matter how much water you put in or take out, the structural mass does not change. A lot of people use the representative elementary volume, which is a volume as a reference, but we know that's going to change with moisture content. So we have to make sure that all of these thermodynamic equations are linked to the structural mass because it will never change. It will always be a constant. And so using that, we're able to extract key pieces of information from the shrinkage curve paired with the water retention curve, which allows us to identify and quantify 12 characteristic parameters unique to each soil sample, such as micropore water content or micropore potential energy. And so the shrinkage curve is going to be your change in volume as water evaporates. And that is this like curvy line at the top, where the water retention is the soil's. Oh, I do have a pointer. I've never had a pointer before. So the curvy line. And then the water retention curve is going to be the soil's ability to hold on to water molecules as they try to evaporate. And that's the like single slope that we see there. So for methodology, we need to have a field. We need to grow some crops, specifically sorghum, because the raccoons ate the corn. So we went with sorghum. Then we need to get some soil samples, take them back to the lab. And then with our very nice Excel sheet, extract our soil characteristic parameters from both the shrinkage curve and the water retention curve. Thankfully, I got to use the experimental farm, so I didn't have to do any of that work. I just showed up and took some soil samples. But in case anyone doesn't know, it's right there on campus, the Prairie View Experimental Farm. And the soil on this farm is a walkily fine sandy loam with 67% sand. So if anybody knows soil, that's not really going to hold water. So we can really see a lot of improvements with this if we're successful at improving its ability to hold water. But sand doesn't really shrink like clay does. And part of what we need to do is track the shrinkage curve. And if it doesn't shrink, it's just going to be really hard to accurately track that curve as the water is evaporating. So just keep that in mind as we go through results later. So we got to plant, well, I didn't have to, but Prairie View planted sorghum bicolor in their nice little field. After first incorporating organic amendments in April, sorghum was planted in May, and there was 40 plants per plot. And they recorded the height every week, harvested in July, and selected the middle 4 plants of each plot to represent that plot. And then we got the biomass as grams per those 4 plants, and the grain yield per 4 plants in grams. Along with recording height, we also have panicle length, which directly correlates with the grain yield. So in my lab, I had to build something brand new to do this. So to be able to analyze our soil shrinkage curve and our water retention curve, they need to be measured at the exact same time. We need to be able to overlay them on a graph. So there's a really big fancy machine called the TypaSoil that can do this, but I didn't have reliable access to it. So I decided to try to find another way to do it. And I was actually really successful at making an accessible way to do it, because the TypaSoil is like a $400,000 machine. Mine is like $8,000. So way better for the average lab. So I chose a Hyprop because people already use Hyprops to measure water retention. But typically when a Hyprop is used, there is a metal ring that goes around the soil to hold it in place, keep its structure. But what I was finding is this was really only important for part of the setup process. So like as you are preparing your soil for analysis, that this part has to sit on top of the soil, like it's inverted. So if there's no ring, you're gonna just crush all of your soil. But I found a way using an adapter and just eyeballing it and being super careful that you can actually set the soil onto the sensor instead. So I was able to remove that ring and add some lasers. So then as the water evaporates, we can actually see the soil shrink. And we have 2 lasers tracking radius, so that got us diameter, and 1 tracking height. And they, the diameter lasers have an accuracy of 10 microns, while the height is 20 microns. So very accurate. For the Hyprop, I had to start there because they have their set software and there's only so much you can do. So we really want the inflection points of these 2 curves. So we need as many data points as possible. So I went to Hyprop and I said, how many points can I get over a given amount of time? They said the best we can do is 1 every 10 minutes, which wasn't great, but it's what we got. The lasers you can do once every second if you want. So I just modified them to fit the measurement patterns of Hyprop, which does luckily give you every minute of the first 20 minutes, because that's when the most evaporation happens very quickly. So you need to track like as much as you possibly can at the very beginning. And then after, you know, it did all its analysis on the Hyprop, water has evaporated. Then we put the soil in the oven at 104 degrees Celsius for 24 hours. And then you can get the structural mass where there is no more water present. So with our petastructural approach, our water retention curve and soil shrinkage curve combine into a full characteristic curve. And with that curve, we're able to extract like every single letter on that curve means something. And it's all linked to that specific soil and how it behaved in the lab. So we have 12 to 13 parameters based on the soil. I just listed a couple of the more like relevant ones to this research. So we have the water content of the micropores at saturation, that's WMI-SAT. And so that's how much water the micropores are capable of holding, period. That is their absolute max. Then we have the same for the macropores. But then we have the micropore and macropore potential energy, which is the potential energy of the surface charges of those particles that hold on to the water. So the higher the potential energies, the harder it is to remove the water. Then we have specific volume, water content of the specific pore volume of the dry PEDs. So like the very far tail end of the curve before it goes into the oven. So like the last water content before you take every tiny itty bitty microscopic piece out. And then KBS and KST are both different points of like different slopes along the curve. So KBS is the basic slope, and then KST is the structural slope. So all of those combine to get us our results in the end. So there's a lot of data points. So we'll just go top to bottom, right to left, or left to right. So what we see is that so control is always pink, and the biochar soil is always blue. So overall water content at saturation does seem to increase. And then we have the micropore water content, very obvious jump there. But the macropore water content at saturation didn't really do anything at all. You can see it's not statistically significant. But there has been a lot of study, well, a couple of studies, not that many people actually go over biochar in soil, but a few studies found that they didn't really see that biochar affected the macropores. So that makes sense that it didn't do anything. Then we have the energy content of the macropores, which again, very insignificant. But the micropores, we do see that there is an increase in the biochar soil, but there's a really big outlier in there. So I took
Can
that.
you walk us through with your, can you walk us through I mean, the main ones?
This one
Yeah.
is the one I'm talking about right now.
Okay.
So there's that really big outlier in there. And I didn't know if that was affecting this number, which was my statistical significance. So I pulled out the outlier, ran it again, and we see that it's even more significant. So there is a significant increase in the micropore potential energy, regardless of the outlier. So that's very good to see. Then the next is field capacity, which did not have any significance. Then we have permanent wilting point, which we see a decrease. So the permanent wilting point of the field is going down, meaning it can hold more water before plants wilt. And so because of that, we see an increase in plant available water overall. And then we have specific volume, which I ran just as like an afterthought, because I was really curious about like the field capacity values, and there was no significance there. So the specific volume, field capacity, permanent wilting point, and plant available water, all of those come directly from the shrinkage curve, which remember is sand. So not a lot for the lasers to really track there. So you can see the specific volume basically is kind of the same across the board. So that makes sense why we weren't really able to make a determination of field capacity, because it has to use the shrinkage curve, and we just didn't really have enough differing trends to make like a clear conclusion. But just to explain the little, like all of the points, the high prop uses two tensiometers. There's an upper one and a lower one. Because I didn't have enough samples or enough time to run more samples, We decided to use those tensiometers as like a duplicate sample because they are occurring at different heights of the soil. So theoretically, the soil can arrange itself differently in those different points. So we couldn't consider it its own sample, but we use it as a duplicate sample. So that's why there's 2 per plot.
If I'm a farmer, can you tell me in a couple of statements, what does all this data mean to me?
So far what we have found is that the micropore water is increasing, and the energy of the potential energy of the micropores is also increasing. So the soil is able to hold its micropore water a little tighter, and it also has accommodated like its arrangement to just have more micropore water in general. So overall, plants have a lot more access, which we can see as plant available water increases and permanent wilting point decreases. So you can theoretically, and we'll see it in the crop data, theoretically use the same amount of water and get a higher yield or less water for the same yield.
So biochar helps the soil retain more water for the plants.
At least we do see that it helps plants in the micropore space. It doesn't really do anything in the macropores, but the plants don't need that anyway. So we looked at some sorghum growth. I compared height and biomass because I was really curious about like if the soil is changing the way the roots are growing, if maybe there's more above ground versus below ground biomass or something happening, but no trend whatsoever. Not helpful. But I'm just assuming that's because plants kind of just, they're alive, they do what they want. And it's also a really small data set, so it's going to be really hard to see definite conclusions there. But in the yield and the panicle length, the biochar soil, which is on the right, significantly increased by a lot. If I'm remembering correctly, it was a 369% increase in yield. Very dramatic increase, and they are statistically significant through a t-test. So then I ran a 2A ANOVA to compare and see how the the differences in the soil structure were directly affecting the plants. Just in plants specifically, the height affects the yield and the panicle length affects the yield. That makes sense. A taller plant is probably growing better, probably has more to give us in the way of its crop. But then with the soil, we see with the panicle length, all soil parameters that I looked at, except for both potential energies, did directly impact the panicle length. But in the grain yield, every single variable impacted the yield. So we do see that improving soil structure will directly improve your grain yield, at least of sorghum. And so in conclusion, applying the 2 times recommended rate of biochar for growing sorghum in this field was shown to improve most of the hydrostructural parameters, including the overall water content and saturation, the micropore water content, and micropore potential energy, and plant available water, which was achieved by lowering the soil's permanent wilting point. And these improvements showed a significant correlation to the increase in grain yield, with most improvements significantly correlated to panicle length as well. The micropore data was inconclusive, which does support previous research that suggests that biochar has no effect on macropores until at the very least it begins to fully break down after many years. Sorghum height and biomass were inconclusive, but this is probably due to the variability of living organisms and the small data set. So if we were to redo this with a larger data set, we would probably find conclusiveness in the height and the biomass as well. I was very lucky that Prize funded this, and I was able to do a joint project with A&M and Prairie View. It was a wonderful experience. I learned so much from mostly everyone over here, but I had a lot of fun. So.
Well, we have time for a couple of questions. Any questions for Ashley?
Well, everybody is thinking about their questions. Ashley, could you tell us the long-term effects of biochar interactions with soil and soil chemistry and ultimately to affect the plant yield?
So with the soil chemistry, with the way we do our research, I don't look at any of that. I just look at the structure. So I guarantee there's an effect, and I really want to know what it is, but I cannot do that analysis. I have only seen the one data set of like the one time frame, so I don't know long term. I would really like to know long term if there's a structural difference. The research suggests that over time the structure will just get better and better at holding water. This biochar was granular, and in some of my soil samples you can still see like the full granule, so I know it didn't decompose all the time or completely and break down. So there's probably a lot more benefit that will happen. I just don't know how long that's going to take.
Since these are presentation by graduate students, I would like to encourage our graduate student to ask questions. And you don't have to be graduate student, even undergrad can ask as well.
Did you use any particular size of the biochar, or did you use just?
It was, oh, I don't remember the exact size. It was purchased at Home Depot. So just like a standard bag, and it was from coconut husk.
Mhm.
Thank you. Well, we have students here. Introduce yourself, please.
Very small question. Hi, actually, my question is, what the source to making the biochar, like aquatic plant or some algae?
I can't really hear.
Was
you.
this-
Of the biochar.
It was coconut husk from Home Depot.
Go ahead.
Uh,
Introduce yourself.
my name is Damar Wilson. I'm a graduate student. This is my second year in the Natural Resources and Environmental Science program. My question is, what was the temperature for the biochar? What was the pyrolysis temperature?
I have
Didn't
no
know.
idea.
These are good questions. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
It's
If
Uh,
we had, provided our own biochar, then we would know all those answers, but we bought it at the store, so it's whatever they did.
yeah, I'm sure there is. We can find out, but these questions are good questions about.
Specifically, the temperature, I know was not on the bag, that it only had like an itty bitty little info box and almost nothing was in there.
Go ahead.
Basically, it just said coconut husk.
Do you think different temperatures can affect soil properties when applied biochar at different temperatures?
I definitely think so. It's the parent material is going to have a big effect, but also just how it was made into the biochar. So temperature, all the things that go into that, because then we're going to have different nutrients at the end. Different, like microbes are going to break different ones down differently, and that's going to change everything. So whatever you put in is going to be completely different from something that's just slightly similar.
Those of us who are in soil, I think these are good research questions that we need to pursue, it seems. So.
Sorry, I'm an economist, a token economist or two in this room. But three questions, Ashley. A great presentation, enjoyed it. Loved the partnership between Texas A&M and Prairie View A&M University, using our farm as a test bed. First question, what is the difference between biochar and mulch from my perspective? I've heard a lot about biochar and I know about mulch, being a home backyard gardener. What is the difference? Second one, have you thought about the optimum rate of biochar? Because in response to Dr. Fariz's question, you said more biochar is better because it helps the plant grow and absorb more water in the micropores and so on. And I was listening, right?
Yeah,
Pretty good stuff. Yeah. And finally, what comes next for you after this?
Okay.
Thank you, Dean.
Oh yeah, biochar. Okay, yeah. So mulch is it's used in the landscape industry more than like agriculture. And mulch is usually like it can be rubber or it can be wood, but it's usually wood, like basically just like chips of wood. And people will apply mulch on top of their soil to prevent erosion and to help rain get a little better infiltrated. Biochar is like the byproduct of combustion, I guess is the best word, of organic materials. So it's it looks very different. It's black. In this case, it was granular. So itty bitty little balls instead of like a big chunk of wood. And so biochar itself, because it's bound so tightly, it is very difficult for microbes to break it down. So it takes a long time. Weathering would take a long time as well. Mulch, I would assume, would break down quicker, but it wouldn't have the nutrients of the biochar.
Yeah, you did well. I think you did very well. This is a question we can investigate it further. I mean, we can give a more elaborated answer, but I think for time purpose, for the next presenter, we'll stop here, and we would like to give Ashley another round of applause. So next speaker, thank you, Ashley. Next speaker is Simon. But you have a very, very educated in the subject matter audience, so they ask good questions, which is great. She did.
That was like the scariest day of my life. So at least that's past.
So this one, right? So, yeah, thank you everyone for coming and participating to this seminar, and thanks for giving me this opportunity to present my research in front of you all. So my research title is, as you can see, the severe groundwater scarcity in northwestern Bangladesh, and it will assess the impacts on groundwater and agriculture from river intervention and climate change. So I did start this research from my previous university, which is Western Illinois University. I started that, and I came here through the transfer university. So I'll be doing this research, so continue. And so moving to the next, the context of this research is basically groundwater, in Bangladesh, in northern part of Bangladesh, is very essential for the drinking purpose as well as for the agricultural use. So there are huge unpredictable drought is happening throughout the northern part of the Bangladesh, as well as we are facing some uneven rainfall. So rainfall pattern are very uneven, and it's not like the pattern is not we are expecting throughout our country. And in the dry season, we see the almost all the natural resources, reservoirs are becoming dry, and evaporation are very high over there, and also it's creating impact on drinking water, agriculture, and the sanitation. So overall, we can say that the region is facing very growing groundwater scarcity over the time due to the three impacting factor. As you can see, the upstream river intervention and the over extraction of the groundwater for different purposes, and as well as the global climate change impact. So if I talk about the upstream intervention, as you can know, as you are aware that northwestern part of the Bangladesh is just adjacent to India, and there in 1975 there was a barrage, as you can see. So here just before Bangladesh, it's there was a barrage established in 1975, So this purpose of this barrage was to maintain the flow of this river, which is called Hooghly River, and to maintain the navigation of the Kolkata port, to maintain the navigation and also the flow of this river. So what happened after establishing the barrage, we see that there are huge problems are facing the as well as both the country, both India and Bangladesh are facing for different issues with this barrage. Here, every year we're facing flood at Patna, and also the siltation, the sedimentation and the siltation is happening here before the Kolkata port. So the purpose that this barrage was established were not met, because siltation is happening more aggressively, as well as there is flooding happening in those areas. So next, what happened to the downstream country, which is Bangladesh? This barrage becomes as a curse of Bangladesh. As you can see, at the dry season, for the post and pre flow rate of the discharge rate, here you can see that the discharge rate before at Padma River, which is the river they built barrage, they call it in India part, they call it Ganges River or Ganga River, and we call it Padma River. So the flow rate of this river at dry season usually have to be above 2000 cubic. So we can see that it was above 2000 cubic before the barrage established, but gradually at dry season, gradually it goes down, and now the flow rate is below 500 cubic. So the consequently the impacts you can see, this bridge was a very famous bridge in our country. This bridge bridge was established for the traveling purpose. So you can see there is no water at the dry season, no water at all, and the peoples are cultivating some crops or something like this on the middle of the river because there is no water. And what happened in the rainy season, which is the monsoon season? In the monsoon season, you can see we are facing different issues for the rainfall as well as the river flow. So we are getting rainfall at starting from the June to the October to November. So this time we're getting rainfall as well as huge amount of flow. So suddenly from 500 cubic, the river flow goes to above 60,000 cubics. So this is creating a flash flood around the river areas. Like those are the cities and villages, they are getting flash flood every year. So those water are not resurging in the groundwater. Those are passing and doing more damage to the people. And lastly, another damage is creating, you can see the salinity problem. As this northwestern part of Bangladesh is close to the coastal areas of Bay of Bengal, so you can see the difference of pre and post making the Farakka barrage, the difference on the salinity. You can see from these months, the salinity has increased in those areas like 5 to 6 times before that. But if you can see in the dry season, the salinity increased more than 10 times, which is the inclusion of the salinity up towards the upward section of the country. So what's happening? People are not getting drinkable water, so they are forced to drink the saline water, and their agriculture are totally goes down from 3 cropping pattern to 1 cropping, or sometimes some places 2 cropping pattern. And the women and the females are getting a lot of problems. They are failing to have the capacity to give birth to the children. So there is huge health impact as well. So moving to next, the last impacting factor is the climate variability. So this is all, this is a global problem, as you can see. But for northwestern part of Bangladesh, we can see that 75% of the rain happens only within short period of the month. So this is the jump of the rainfall pattern. So only 2 months, these 2 months, which is June and July, with these 2 months, 50% of annual rainfall happen. So guess what? If 50% of annual rainfall happen within 2 months, and whole lot of the whole year is used to prevails dry. So this huge amount of rainfall and water comes from the barrage, because it's not possible to hold the whole watershed water, that is runoff water, to hold by the barrage. So what happened? Barrage used to get open at the time of this rainy season at this months, and all the runoff water from whole watershed comes together and made the flash flood at the downstream areas. And another thing is drought. Drought, as I told you earlier, drought is uneven, drought is unpredictable, because in the dry season, you can see that all the time the drought is prevailed. The drought indices, based on that, this northwestern part is highly severe. Drought is happening every year. So it's also increasing as per the percentages. So we'll be doing a study on this part of the country that are facing drought in every year, and it's not predictable how much that would be, how worse that would be in the next couple of years. So the research gap was in that perspective, that we actually don't know that what will be happen in next 20 years or 30 years, what will happen to the groundwater storage availability, what will happen to the salinity issues. Either it will come more upward, or we don't know actually how to implement. Now a lot of sources of data available, like satellite sources and other sources. Now different models are we have available, but we are using only the local measured sources, like the water source, the data source from Bangladesh Water Development Board. So we need to use all the data sources based on the satellite, based on machine learning, on all those things we need to use to accurately predict the groundwater storage status of these locations. And we don't know actually which area would be more affected. We are doing recommendation based on that. We need to do some groundwater measure conservation practices, but which location will be more impacted within next 10 or 20 years, and what we need to do immediate basis remediation. So we don't know actually. So those are the research gap. We are taking this research for this purpose. And as for the objective, we will improve the accuracy. We want to improve the accuracy of groundwater availability predictions. So we want to improve that. And also we want to deploy the satellite and measure data, both the sources, and we will compare those analysis through the model predictions by two different data sources, and then we will compare those things. And we'll also see the availability of surface water. Beside the groundwater, we'll see the availability of surface water as well, because within last 10 or 20 years, there are huge amount of natural reservoirs. Those are lakes, ponds, and they are become already dry and they are dead. So we know there is no research which have seen that, which has given some status like the surface water status. So we want to use the land use land cover method to identify those previously available groundwater surface water reservoirs, and we will show how it's impacted on the surface water availability as well. And we will identify highly impacted areas. Like I said, that we need to identify the hotspots of which are impacting more, like some districts, some local villages. So we need to identify those areas, and we need to take immediate actions to conserve some recommended to do some conservation actions and to do some recommendation for those areas. So my study area was mostly, as I told you, that the river we are working with, this is a national, this is a multi national rivers, which is 3 countries are related with these rivers. It's a big basins, as you can see, Nepal, India, and Bangladesh. This is the 3 countries related with this river basin. So we'll be working in Bangladesh, this part, basically mostly this part. So we'll be working with this study area, and we'll be collecting data from these 4 district of the Bangladesh, which is northern part of the Bangladesh, and different point of data collection. So here, what we're gonna do, we will use the mode flow modeling, which is we will use this to predict the groundwater flow, as well as we will use to predict the groundwater storage. So we will be using this mode flow model to do that, and we will also run the model with satellite and Bangladesh Water Development Board data. So as I told you, that we are going to use 2 data sources to compare the prediction accuracy and other things. And we will also identify the hotspot area and provide location-based groundwater conservation practices and water management practices. And we are going to use the data sources. They are diverse data sources, as you can see. Recently, the recent innovation is the harmonized Sentinel-2 version dataset, which is satellite-based dataset from NASA. There are new tools that they have developed to share the historical and also current data sources. So we'll be using the water balance data apps from the NASA, and we'll also use the Google Earth Engine to compare the data, climatic data, and also the measured data from locally measured data from Bangladesh Water Development Board. So with that, we'll be simulate those data to the mode flow modeling, and we will predict the groundwater storage, as well as we'll predict the groundwater flow. So what would be the storage and what would be the flow in next 30 years? The flow, where the flow will be go, what the flow, which is the direction of the flow of the groundwater, and what would be the amount of storage based on different location. So this is the modeling framework for my research. So another is the surface. As I told you that we are going to also assess the surface water status. So to do the assessment of surface water, we'll be using some comparing tools through the Google Earth Engine, and also we'll be doing some coding on that tools, like some coding from some basic codings on JavaScript and Python coding. So to compare those data from location to location, and as well as to some time to time, and also for the predictions. So we are gonna use that as well, and we are use the land cover and land use tools from ArcGIS, and we are doing some analysis the area that already dead because of the drought and other things, like the natural resource reservoirs that are lakes, ponds that are already dead. We are gonna show that up, how many reservoirs already dead, and which reservoirs are under threat. So what we need to do. So we are gonna do this as well. So expected outcomes is very clear for our perspective, that we are going to enhance the prediction accuracy of surface and groundwater availability, and also the comprehensive analysis of land use and land cover impacts on surface water availability using some machine learning and coding, and also identify highly impacted areas, mostly in the northwestern part of Bangladesh, and we'll do some recommendation based on location specific and based on the hotspot that impacted more. So That's all from that research. I am here now. I am doing another research which is based on the integrating remote sensing and weather data using machine learning techniques, and we are gonna evaluate the drought impacts on agriculture and water footprints at Texas. So this is my thesis research. I have already started this, and I have submitted this proposal to the Texas Water Research Institute for funding. I hope I will get. If not, I will be continuing this research here for my thesis program. So thank you. That's all from my part. If you have any questions.
Okay, the room is open for questions, preferably from our graduate students, then second preference from the rest, right? This is your colleague, so just give him questions and comments as well. Yes, and please make sure to introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Prantik Kumar Goswami, the new graduate student. I joined this fall. Oh, sorry, this spring 2025. My supervisor is Dr. Jayant Lohakare. So this is not question. I'm just asking about but there are a lot of different types of machine learning models. So which type of model you are specifically want to use? This is not question, just my curiosity. Yeah. Thank you.
It's a question worth answering.
Yeah, thank you, Prantik. As we are going to use the mode flow model for the prediction of the groundwater flow and storage. This is the model we are going to use, and you will be doing some machine learning, means some coding and the programming language to predict. We have some like Google Earth Engine. We have a lot of scope of doing some coding there. So we will be using the coding to compare the climatic parameters and other parameters over there to visualize the impact on groundwater as well as the surface water.
Maybe Professor Vital, if you can ask a little, add a little bit more to the machine learning question.
Regarding the machine learning, I'm saying about his ongoing project. So we always need to check which one will work better. We cannot directly say that we will use this particular. We'll always keep some 3-4 options like random forest, maybe some GAM, generalized additive models, or we can start with some direct multilinear regression models too. So it's always like we will use 3-4 models and which one will work better.
Thank you for the addition. We have another question here.
Yeah. Hello.
Introduce yourself. You didn't introduce
Yeah, my name is Dr. Kumar. I'm working as a postdoc researcher under Climate Smart Commodities project under Professor Ram. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a good work you have done. I'm just a query type, and you can think like a suggestion also.
Yeah.
What do you think about the river linking program? Like some portion of your basin is just affected by this mass flood, like the flash flood, but at the same time during the means monsoon period, June, July, something.
Mhm.
So other portion of the means your country is not
Same
affected by
condition.
the some river basins, maybe the drought condition. So can be things about the river linking, the few portions of the flash flood water can be added to
Yeah.
that river.
Yeah, definitely. But as you can see from India perspective, there is you call it Ganga, Yamuna. So those rivers are the same rivers connected to each other, and the basin as well. So the basin is basically mostly connected rivers. It's a linked rivers as well as from Bangladesh. From Bangladesh, the three major river, which is Padma, Brahmaputra, and Jamuna. So these three rivers connected at a point in Bangladesh and passes towards the Bay of Bengal. So we have to think about all those rivers. Now I am doing based on the northwest part of the Bangladesh and thinking only for Padma rivers. But for bigger perspective, for bigger benefit, and for whole subcontinent region, we need to think about the river linkage and river connectivity, and we'll do analysis for all the region. You have mentioned a good point, because we need to think for all the river, all the basin, not only the one. Yeah.
Yes, I think that's a good point about flooding in general. I mean, and here in the US, we're blessed. We have the National Water Model. The National Water Model is basically simulate the hydrology of the contiguous United States, especially east of the Cascades. All of them are interconnected using a supercomputer model that uses the National Water Model to simulate flooding and water across the US. So I think the regional component is very important. And even here in Houston, when we talk about flooding and what to do with it, it's not Harris County, Waller County, it's all the region of this area of Texas that needs to deal with flooding because unfortunately flooding doesn't believe in juridical, what do you call it, limitation that we have per counties. We have another question here.
Thank you for good
Yeah.
presentation, Simon. I have one question about, you said the reason you are studying because of the drought, like most of the
Water
rainfall
scarcity.
is happening during June, July, and rest of the year is no more rainfall. So my question is, if you ever studied the reason, like the rainfall pattern is changing, yearly rainfall pattern is changing, and you are getting reduced rainfall during those 2 months, or the rainfall pattern is changing and you're getting rain during winter months, and that's why the drought is happening during the summer, like crop producing month.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. And you mentioned rightly that we need to check the rainfall pattern as well because you know the El Nino and La Nina effect. It's creating uneven rainfall pattern, which we are not expected to have, like both in terms of timing and as well as the number of rainy days. So if you think about the number of rainy days, the overall rainfall, average rainfall, the annual average rainfall of Bangladesh is like 2,200 millimeter. This is the annual rainfall. But the annual rainfall doesn't change. It is like similar, like 2,000, 1,800, 1,900. So these the similar annual average rainfall is prevailing. But the number of rainy days and the time it needs to be happen, it's changed. And either it's happening together, heavy rain is happening together and creating the flash flood, or and either it's creating long time no rain. So that's the problem is happening, and that's it's creating either flash flood or severe drought. So I didn't do any research on that, but of course I have planned to extend my research. I'm doing research on groundwater availability. I will also do the research on rainfall pattern, other climatic parameters. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good question and a good answer as well. We have a question from online, so we have some online presence. And Professor Ampim, he's saying great presentation for both of the students. And a question, in your opinion, what is the cause of the increasing salt content of groundwater in the northern part of Bangladesh? Are the aquifers in this area confined or unconfined?
Yeah, the cause is, from my point of view, the cause is the reduction of the groundwater, the intrusion of the salt water towards upward. So the like the surface water, groundwater also travel like from with the gradient. So it's travel from upper gradient to downward gradient. So what happens if the gradient changes? If the gradient changes under the water, under the aquifer level, what happens? The salt water will come upward.
Yeah.
Because there will be lower gradient. So that's why I know that the possible reason is reduce down the groundwater, depletion of the groundwater, and intrusion of the salt water. Yeah.
Do you have any question for Ashley? So this time we have a couple of minutes. Do you have any question that you want to ask to Ashley or Simon for that purpose, if you want? Yes.
The question, I think, was asked, what's next for you, Ashley? Your career path, I think that was the question.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes, speak up.
So I just started my PhD. I guess technically over the summer while I was still finishing the master's. It was kind of at the same time. So what we are thinking my project is going to be because we're working on it right now, is that, so I have proven that we can change soil and find all these different characteristics. Well, the USDA has soil maps and they have a lot of data, but not these characteristics. But there was a paper that our group did a long time ago, well, maybe like 5 years ago, that found a way to link their process to ours. So my goal is to like solidify that and actually get the math fleshed out and get it to work so that we can take all the data that the USDA already has and add on the new parameters that we've uncovered, like the micropore water and plant available water. So that's the goal. We'll see if it works.
Great, that's a good project. Any other questions before we adjourn? If none, yes,
I just want to make.
we have a couple of questions, yes.
I wanted to mention that these two projects are very exciting. And, you know, ARS and NRCS would be potential collaborators for you to think about and talk with your PIs. I think it would be better to, especially NRCS, who is really interested in working with us and for us.
Thank you, Dr. Mimoli. I think gonna give the floor for Dean D'Souza.
And former graduate student, so I get to ask a question, right? So we have a very special guest in the audience, and before I introduce him, it strikes me that, have you heard of biochar?
Yeah.
So the water problem in Bangladesh potentially could be addressed through biochar.
It could
And
be.
I know Bangladesh, India, that area has a lot of coconut husk and so on,
Yeah.
so, you know, so there's an idea. What pursuing, yes, yeah. So anyway, our very special guest today comes from NASA, Dr. Lula, right here in the audience. And so he's an internationally acclaimed space scientist who's dedicated his life to space exploration for benefit of all humanity. And sorry, I don't mean to upstage you. I should stand behind you guys because this is all about grad student day. But Dr. Lula serves as Chief Scientist and Director for Research Collaborations and Partnerships at NASA Johnson Space Center. So what better way to forge a partnership between the land-grant university here at Prairie View A&M University and Johnson Space Center. And so we are the closest land-grant, and hopefully we can be a space grant university as well through this partnership. Yeah, so Dr. Lula has committed $10 million of research to Prairie View for this. No, sorry, good answer, good answer. So he's won a lot of awards, accolades, and so on. He has done Earth Smart training for NASA astronauts. And I know that in this college, we have several folks like Dr. Aruna, Ampim, and so on, doing research on space agriculture. So this is a great partnership. This is a great time for us to look at ways to collaborate so that we can use biochar to also have some applications on the moon, Mars, and much more. Okay, so what better way to conserve moisture where there's no water using biochar? So a lot of applications. So Dr. Lula holds not one, but 2 PhD degrees. So it's hard enough to get 1 PhD degree or a master's degree. Yeah, he's got 2, and so kudos to him. Very pleased to have him here. So he is our guest for part of the afternoon. And from 1 o'clock to 1:30, you're welcome to stop by the conference room right here in Kark to have a roundtable discussion about how we can collaborate with NASA and NASA can collaborate with us in terms of innovations, entrepreneurship, and much more. You know, we have a lot to offer in this college, and I believe that a lot of these applications can be utilized not just on Earth to make food more secure, but someday on Mars to make Mars more secure. Make Mars secure again. Sorry. I don't know where I came up with that slogan from. But I mean this seriously because, you know, one of my ideas that I discussed with my leadership team is how can we encourage and incentivize more innovations and entrepreneurship in the college? Because the idea is, at the end of the day, we got to have patents, we got to have some discoveries that generate revenue for the college. From the discussion and the happenings of the past few days, we cannot rely on one source of funding alone. So we've expanded from capacity funding to competitive funding. And so we got to go more into detail in terms of identifying revenue streams that could be commercialized in space and other environments. So at some point, I'm going to unveil an idea for a Shark Tank. And so we'll have students, including graduate students, work with undergraduate students, pitch ideas to a group of investors, venture capitalists. We'll develop this collaboratively with the College of Business and other partners, because at the end of the day, you know, students, you folks have great ideas, and our scientists are well poised to work with you to take these ideas to the finish line. So just a sneak preview of things to come. And then with the help of partners and collaborators like Dr. Lula, I believe that we're poised for greatness. So thanks for indulging me for a few minutes, and I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Dean D'Souza, and let's give our speakers a round of applause. Oh. I think space nutrition would be a great area to collaborate on. That's a good idea. So this from Dr. Quinlan. Good. So great. So I think we have lots of good ideas. We would like to take a picture here, for especially with our guests and students.